News, views, voices of the global Indian community. India abroad.
All right, we are here at the consulate office here in Chicago. We have the Consul General, Mr. Somnath Ghosh, with us. We just wrapped up a great informative session by Shivinder Singh, who is the Vice President of NASSCOM Global Trade Development, and a very informative session. Sir, as you mentioned during your speech, that he was here since yesterday, and there have been very fruitful meetings. What all you will be able to share? What were the developments and what good things came out of his visit?
Yes, thank you. First of all, namaskar. Mr. Shivinder Singh, the Vice President of NASSCOM, which is the apex body of IT and IT-related services in India, an industry of about 255 billion. He is visiting the region. For about 1.5 days, he was in Indianapolis. He called on the governor there in Indiana. Indiana is one of the front-ranking states in attracting Indian IT investments. From there, he is here in Chicago. Yesterday, we met about 16 top professionals, all related to IT, and we discussed how we can informally how our business can grow, our mutual support on innovation and trade in IT and IT-related services, including the critical and emerging sectors, can grow. And today from morning, he has met the top representatives of Illinois government, also the M-Hub, the innovation. He has he has also interacted with other innovation and an incubator organization, and he also met with IT-Serve, the apex body here for IT-related services and HR-related services in IT. So today, after that, this talk by him took place, where he talked about IT industry, its opportunities, the critical and emerging sector, and various issues related to India-US IT sectors, opportunities as well as the various challenges that we need to tackle. So I'm very glad that more than 60 professionals are here. They're very critical, and we feel that such interaction and such events will lead to more mutual investment and mutual trade in IT and IT-related services, with an emphasis on emerging and critical sectors.
Thank you, sir. It was very informative, and thank you for hosting this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dhanyavad.
All right, so we just heard the very informative session hosted by the Consul General. Let's talk to the guest himself, Mr. Shivinder Singh from NASSCOM, the Global Trade Development team. Sir, you have been here since yesterday. What are the key takeaway points that you are taking, and how has been the meeting so far?
So thank you first for inviting me here. I think this is the first official visit right now after a very long time for NASSCOM. So it was more to explore the opportunities and the alignment and the benefits we can have for both sides. And I must say, thanks to our Consul General, we've managed some exceedingly good meetings. And I'm very, very optimistic about the opportunities that we can have to create a win-win partnership. So let's talk about startups, which are the flavor of the day. And there is a lot of focus on startups here. I am aware of there are a lot of accelerators, incubators, and of course enterprises cutting across advanced manufacturing, healthcare, banking, financial services, insurance, and Industry 4.0. And a lot of our startups, which we have, are deep tech startups. We have a deep tech startup focus for NASSCOM. And these are all startups which have evolved. Some of them are unicorns, some of them are unicorns, and focused on the product ecosystem, transformative startups, a lot of them on products. So we are going to be curating startups, and we are planning a visit in September end, where we were going to San Francisco Bay Area as well as New York. But based on the discussions that I've had, I'm very optimistic that we could potentially come to Chicago as well for a day. So that's one big opportunity. Of course, as I mentioned, the thought leadership to elaborate the India-US partnership and how tech would be a key linchpin to this partnership on both formal ISET, innovation handshake, trade policy forums, ICT joint working groups, as well as working on trying to enhance the presence of our large companies, SMEs, to the Chicago region. Given the huge amount of strengths which this region possesses in universities as well. So one was able to understand a fair bit of that. The third is we are strategically engaging with a number of states. Illinois is one area, and Chicago is one of the states that we would like to be deeply engaged with. I did Indiana as well before this, and Indiana currently ranks number 1 jointly with Texas in terms of the number of employees our tech companies employ, and it has increased by nearly 43% from 2017 to 21. So around this region in the Midwest, I think there are a lot of synergies that we have, and we should look at working towards that. The other one I mentioned is on talent, how we could work together on talent to bridge the talent gap is another one. And of course on AI, which is a big issue, and how do we make it more inclusive, more equitable, given the fact that while the GDP growth is going to enhance tremendously, these are areas which we need to be ensure that it's more equitable, inclusive growth. So those are a few areas.
So, sir, the question answer sessions that you had, not just today, but everywhere, is there a common thread or theme or any common, pain points that were shared with you? Any common things that you feel like taking away with you and discussing it?
So, of course, everything is not always hunky-dory, as we all know. I was in Washington, doing my federal meetings as well. And while, as we discussed on the talent side, that some time back, in terms of numbers, we had one person available for 10 job vacancies. Now, if there is a gap, you have to bring people on non-immigrant visas. Now, the moment it becomes that, immigration becomes a tricky issue, and some of the challenges that we are facing, although our numbers are very less, not even 5 or 6% now for the Indian companies, but Indian nationals take about 70% of the visas, which is a testimony to their skills, and primarily goes to American companies, which is a great thing. But I think the huge issue is the visa fee hike, which has been tremendous. There is a $600 asylum fee linked to the H-1B visa, which has no linkage whatsoever. And thirdly, on H-1B modernization, while we support a number of measures to reduce fraud, which we are absolutely supportive of and give kudos to USCIS, I think there are some measures around specialty occupation, a third-party placement, which could be a potential red flag in being able to add value to the US economy, because our member companies work with more than 90% of the Fortune 500 companies, majority of them being American companies, and they are responsible to make America the number 1 economy. So I think that's going to be very, very critical.
And so last question is, you talked about, a few things that we are very proud of. Even the diaspora here is proud of the fact of the UPI. When we go back to India, we have seen a lot of development in that sector as well. And so you think that the political ecosystem between two countries is going to and plays a critical part, and especially the upcoming elections in the US as well. So many things are dependent upon the relationship, the strategic partnership between two nations?
So India and US, I think the alignment is possibly the best, and tech sector is key to this partnership. That's point one. Absolutely, it's a very proud thing that India has led on the digital public infrastructure, direct benefit transfer, equitable, inclusive, interoperable, everything. So, UPI is one big success story, and as I mentioned, nearly 1% of India's GDP is happening through the current DPIs, mature DPIs as we call it, through some of the other DPIs which are there. If they achieve full implementation, it can increase the GDP of India by another 2.9 to 3.5%. Now, obviously, India is speaking to a number of nations on this. Each country may have its different differences on how to implement, what to implement, but the core issue remains the same. Is this something which is unique? The answer is yes. Is this something which is transformative? The answer is yes. And each country, and is this something which India has led on, creation? The answer is yes. Now, if we want to take it around the world and we are discussing it, each country may have different set of compulsions and different issues to focus on. So they may take some of this and they may alter it or tweak it to their needs. But the fundamentals remain important. And that is what we are talking about.
Thank you so much, sir. And we had a great session. Thank you for all the information. We look forward to hosting you again in Chicago.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Namaskar. Thank you for joining us at such short notice. We may have more visitors and we'll be waiting for them. But in the meantime, we can start because you'll always get some time to interact with the visitors and with each other. When we talk of India, sometimes at least most part of the world, somehow the image of India is connected to IT. Many of us, those who are here, would remember that there was a milestone in the year 2000, around that time. It started before that, but then there was a very significant progress every year, and it is growing. And United States is one of the largest, in fact, the largest partner in it. So we are very happy that the Vice President of NASSCOM, the apex body, National Association of Software and Services Companies, NASSCOM India, he is visiting us. Yesterday we met in a smaller format, some of us. Today he has had good meetings, at least 3 of them. And this is an occasion when we'll hear from him what is NASSCOM very briefly, if somebody is not done, and what is the industry that it represents, the total volume and the diversity, and what it is looking forward to from Chicago and Greater Chicago. So thank you, Shivendra Singh, for coming and joining us. And what I would propose that you will speak for about 20-25 minutes. Is it okay? Yeah. Whatever you wish, we'll wait, don't worry. And then it will be followed by question and answer.
Thank you so much, Consul General, for your kind words and for the amazing hospitality. I must say that, I travel a lot around the world, given the role that I have. I haven't had this kind of responsibility ever. So, a round of applause for our Consul General, please. And thank you so much for coming and taking out time today. I know it's a Monday evening, so Monday is probably the busiest day for all of us. But I think one of the things that I would like to absolutely set on record, that although it is the first visit to Chicago, and yesterday evening and today in a few meetings that we did, I think there are a number of things which come out very loud and clear. Number one, the amount of cohesion that I've seen across the tech players, the enterprises, the startups, and of course, shepherded by a very able Consul General, is amazing. I haven't seen this kind of cohesion, in many other places. So that's one. The hunger to engage between the Chicago ecosystem or Illinois ecosystem and India is another great one. The Consul General highlighted the fact that India-US bilateral relationship is the most powerful one. In terms of trade, we want it to be the most powerful one because we don't want China to overtake the India, US bilateral relationship. So that's something we'll keep on going. And as the tech industry, I must say that we are contributing tremendously to this relationship. When I compare it to China, the whole industry is about a $254 billion industry. The exports are nearly $200 billion. So it's an export-driven industry. But US by far is the largest market, which is about 62% of the 200 billion. The Brits can sometimes say that, we are 17 to 18%, and maybe per square feet we are more. But that's a separate discussion to be had. Whereas China is, we don't even know what the China numbers are in terms of it's so small. So I'm just trying to belabor the point that the bilat India-US relationship has the tech sector as a linchpin of this relationship on both sides, and we'll discuss that. I take you back to NASSCOM because the CG asked me to, for people who may not know NASSCOM, go back about 30 odd years ago. Now for the tech industry, it's a lifetime, 30 odd years. When, a bunch of CEOs from very small companies, TCS, Infosys, Wipro, all of them were sitting in a room, and then they decided, let's form an association. I think we need to have an association. And then NASSCOM was born. At that time, the cumulative revenue was about $50 million. Fast forward to $254 billion, and we're not even discussing the market cap, because then that becomes far bigger. And that's been the growth story of the tech industry. It is about 7.5% of India's GDP, 50% of our services exports. So as you know, India is a very services-led economy, but this is about 50% of our services exports. So I'm coming back to that question as to this whole India-US bilateral relationship and the role of tech sector is going to define the next 20, 30 years, as we are now very seriously looking at what we call Viksit Bharat by 2047, which is developed India by 2047. These are a few things where we feel that the tech sector is going to define a lot of that relationship as we move forward. Now look at the bilateral relationship that we talk about, and where does the tech element come in? As you may be aware, we had the NSA from the US travel to India some time back to discuss the ISET partnership, something which has been a joint statement by the Honorable Prime Minister and the President of the US. We've had innovation handshake as a part of discussions where both India and US will work together, including very strong startup element to it. My colleague Mayank, who is here in the room, was there in San Francisco when the two, our Commerce Minister and Secretary Commerce Gina Raimondo met and had a deep discussion on that. We have the Trade Policy Forum as a government-to-government discussion where the tech sector plays a very important role. We have the ICT Joint Working Group, which is purely focused on the tech sector and some of the work that we are doing in that sector. Hence, it's a very, very important sector, and we have formal mechanisms at a G2G level. We have Track 1.5 going as business to government. And this is going to define a lot of progress as we move forward, because when we go to the granular level, this is how we will see things move on. Now, why India? I think from a US perspective, I think it's important to note as to why should America be dealing with India. I'm not getting into the China plus one strategy, which probably you know as well, or if not better than me. The supply chain resilience, which we keep on talking about, and the fact that as far as the mobile phone market is concerned, India, not only has about 1.4 billion, we are just slightly ahead in numbers from you in terms of our population, as you know, and hence a very important consumer market. So Apple decides to set up its supply chain. You have Foxconn, which is there now. And now with the semiconductor supply chain being the talk of the town, America is spending a lot of money to attract TSMC, for example, to Arizona and some of the other states. We in India are also working to attract. So Micron decision to come and set up, is a good example. So that again is going to be defining a lot of things. Now, and that's where India is going to be important in terms of this whole supply chain partnership. Now you have Quad, which is again going to be another one. You have IPEF. So beyond the bilateral, there are a number of areas that we are working together to kind of define progress between the two countries. Now, when we look at global GDP, last year and this year, it's just about 3.1%. When we look at Indian GDP, it's practically double of that. So India has been a country which is the fastest growing economy. We used to say the fastest growing free market economy for a reason. And I'm sure you know the reason why. But now we can very proudly say we are the fastest growing economy, because even the non-free market economies are not growing at the rate at which India is growing. So that's a great story. We've had a lot of headwinds on the tech sector, and of course the Russian invasion into Ukraine, or the Israel-Hamas conflict, for example, hasn't helped in this cause. And then Taiwan and China. So business decisions have slowed down, and hence the tech sector hasn't seen the kind of cataclysmic growth it had seen during the COVID period, where everything transformed into tech, if you remember that. Now, despite that, there are a lot of green shoots which we are seeing. And one of the green shoots that we are seeing is AI. And AI is growing at about 30%. And even if you look at conservative estimates by a lot of analysts, by a lot of consulting companies, the growth is not going to be like this. It won't have a sustainable growth model. It will be a cataclysmic growth like this, where they're saying that the GDP growth is going to be growing by multitude after the next 2 years, when the real effects of AI are going to be seen. Look at India as an example, on this one, and that's where one of the things that we should focus on, the US-India relationship. How many of you have heard about the Digital Public Infrastructure, DPI? So that's an amazing story. While the US, and that clearly highlights that no one model is the best model for development. Each country will have its own model, and India decided to go for its own model. So what it means is that, in the US, if we calculate the revenue figures of the top 5 tech companies, it's more than $15 trillion. Just that. And a lot of this big tech success rate is defining the growth of the economy. India went in for a different model. Our challenges were different. Our challenges was that we wanted to have a equitable, inclusive growth, where there is a substantial chunk of the population at the bottom of the pyramid, and we wanted to ensure a direct benefit transfer scheme as the government, and I'm not saying we are taking credit for this is the government's credit. So first let me clarify that. So the direct benefit transfer scheme which the government brought in meant that Aadhaar, which is our universal digital identity that we have, We've used that and used that to kind of put in an open data network where we can have everyone in an interoperable system, where everyone can join in, be it a startup, be it a big player, be it an enterprise. And we've created models where we are looking at, the whole transfer mechanism, where we've opened bank accounts for everyone, and the whole amount was transferred to people directly. And believe you me, this is probably the biggest achievement which the government brought out, and especially felt more during the times of COVID, where transferring money was probably the most important thing. So that model we did a piece of research as NASSCOM and Boston Consulting Group. Nearly 1% of India's GDP contribution has increased only because of DPI. And I'll send you a copy of that report, Consul General. And what we are saying is, these are the mature DPIs. There are a number of others which have also been set into motion. And if all of those kind of push through, and push through at a population scale, which is the most important success matrix for the DPI, the GDP growth can be between 2.9 to 3.5%. Now that's going to be tremendous. So if I fast forward the same inclusive, equitable model of development to AI, because that's going to define a lot of growth. India has come out with a model, and we've been working and we've been following the Senate policy roadmap on AI, which came out with a lot of recommendations, and I think phenomenal, because a lot of those, which talks about using existing laws to look at AI rather than create new laws, which talks about a technology neutral platform, so you don't blame the technology, you blame the impact, which talks about a risk-based approach. So these are exactly the same things that we've been talking in India. So kudos to the team which worked on that at a bipartisan level, led by Senator Schumer and Senator Todd Young. And with the House also going to be coming out on that. At an India level, one of the things that we are going to be working, and we've announced it, we are doing work with the think tank Woodrow Wilson Center on looking at alignment between the US and India on AI, and seeing how we could look to build an equitable, inclusive framework for AI, because that's going to define a lot of growth in the right direction. And I think that is a critical one for both democracies to pick it up at a bilateral level. What I'm trying to say that, number of these areas are fundamental to the core values of the United States of America and India. Hence, it becomes very, very important for us to closely work to create a win-win partnership. While businesses will flow from the US to India, India is the largest hub of global capability centers. I'm sure you're aware of that. We used to call it GICs. Earlier, we used to call it captives, Then someone said, what? Captive is a very colonial term. We shouldn't use that term. So that's good. So now some bright minds have now called it GCCs. So we have more than 1,600 GCCs in India. We are the largest recipient for global capability centers. NASSCOM estimate is about $45 billion in revenue of these GCCs. So if it's a JP Morgan, it has its second largest hub out of India. If it's Morgan Stanley, if it's State Street, many of them, and that is what the success story of India is all about. We talk about, obviously, the success story of Indian companies in the US. We did a piece of research some time back, and guess what? The contribution of the Indian IT sector, I'm just talking about the IT sector, I'm not getting into manufacturing, is about $80 billion to the US GDP, which I am told is a bit more than GDP of a few states in the US. So, a large contribution. We employ more than 500,000 high value add jobs. We create that. And why is this all happening between, Indian companies coming here and being so successful? And the most important contribution, which is very difficult to quantify, is that Indian tech industry works with more than 90% of the Fortune 500 companies, majority of them being American companies, enable them to grow and create more jobs and be the number one economy that the US is. That is a very difficult one to quantify, but it's there. We have IT Serve Alliance today, and I know that we just had a great meeting, and they have, I think, more than 2,000 plus 500 SMEs who are very, very active. As someone told me, very early in life, we can celebrate the success of a few large companies because they're obviously doing great work. But if every 10th person became an entrepreneur and hired 10 people, can you imagine how the GDP of the country would grow? I think it's only now, with the advent of startups, that we've started celebrating entrepreneurship because scalability is less of a challenge now. So I think these are a few things which we need to keep in mind. Now, why is this happening? Why is this such a pronounced growth of engagement between India and the US on both sides? It's happening because of one big thing. Can you guess why? Sorry?
So many Indians are in the United States.
Diaspora. I would love to give credit to the diaspora because I love the diaspora, but it's not the diaspora. And no, so let me say why. It's because of two simple words: digital talent. That is where we punch above our weight. Someone told me a story where basically there was one line was that Indians take to STEM like fish takes to water. And I think that's a very good story. And that's the truth. Now, around the world, including the US, there is a huge gap in talent. I was reading, one of the people who writes in Forbes and Wall Street Journal some time back. We said, there's one available person for 11 job vacancies in computer occupation. It's bad. And with the advent of AI, it's going to be worse. Now, there's a separate discussion to be had as to what's going to happen to jobs when AI comes into full force. And that's for a separate day, I'm sure. While the Consul General asked me to speak for 15-20 minutes, he didn't think that I may speak for 1 hour if I focus only on the AI element. So, digital talent is going to define a lot of our partnerships. And I was super impressed with IT Serve Alliance mentioning that they were spending about $1 billion on STEM upskilling here in the US. We've calculated for typically the large companies, spent about $1.1 billion on upskilling, worked with about 130 plus colleges and universities. And that's one of the big reasons where you will see a lot of transformation. Now comes the key question. When we see this as a challenge, what is it that we can do on talent together? Because I'm sure there are things which we can do together, right? The whole story evolved quite well at the G20 Digital Economy Working Group concluding session, which was held in India, which as a unanimous decision, there were some decisions made, but unanimously there was a decision taken on digital talent. What was that decision? Now, around the world, if you know, there are various job roles and there are various skill sets. Now, if there is a data scientist role, there are 5 key core areas that the skill sets are there. Unfortunately, it's not the same in different countries. It's different. Now that creates a problem, right? So what was decided was, why can't we look at comparability of job roles across the G20 countries, including US and India, and have a center of excellence? And by the way, who can lead this center of excellence? So it was agreed and that UNESCO will do it, because obviously UNESCO being UNESCO, they do a lot of focus on this area. So they'll do it. And this it'll be a virtual center of excellence which will look at job roles and skill sets. Now what will it bring? The important thing is it's going to bring an understanding far more quicker than we are. This one person available for 11 vacancies. We will know quicker across nations that you have a problem in specific job roles. Far more quicker than currently is being done. And if we are an optimist, and if countries want it, it can lead to an interoperability of these job roles. So people can move from one place to the other if political equations are right, a big if. But I think this is going to define a lot of growth on the way forward as I speak. Now, let's look at some of the things which I've picked up on between yesterday and today. And where are the areas of common threads which the Consul General asked? What is it that we could look to do with the Chicago region? That's the most critical of it, based on all these things at a bilateral level. As I said, India has a good startup story. We have 31,000 plus startups, third largest ecosystem. US is a world leader in startups. We know that this region has tremendous strengths in advanced manufacturing, in healthcare, financial services, and as someone said in an earlier meeting that, you know what, we really don't sell ourselves very well, which is good for us. Because, I always make the comparison of Israel and Finland and Sweden, the Nordics. Israel oversells, so it's difficult. Nordics undersells, maybe it's the way of life which they have. So it's good for us. So I think that way, we think that there is a strategic fit for our startups in Indian startups. And as NASSCOM, we have a program for deep tech startups. So we don't look at early stage startups who are just about raising funds at an early level, who don't even have a pilot and are looking to create that first pilot. These are all, mature, transformative startups, not the typical SaaS startups, but product startups, and doing great work. And a fair amount of our focus are on AI startups across some of these sectors. So the first big partnership could be potentially in sectors of advanced manufacturing, Industry 4.0, healthcare, and financial services. And, and we could look to work towards that. So that's one. The other is on a thought leadership level. I think all of you, would be the key people who are instrumental in building the India-US corridor thought leadership in this region. Each one of us have a responsibility to build that. I think that is going to be a great one where a lot of people really don't understand, and members of Congress included, they don't understand what do these tech companies do. Apple has this fancy, nice product, a phone. But by the way, guys, what goes inside the Apple phone is developed by these tech players. As someone said, the CEO of Mercedes India, and very strong statement, there is India in every Mercedes that is being produced. So what I'm saying is, it's our job to make everyone understand the role of these tech players. It's not body shopping. A lot of people still feel it's body shopping. It is not. that you are giving 10 employees to a particular company at a low cost and they are doing the tech outsourcing. It is not that. It's a very outcome based. So if an EV car is being produced, or if a jet engine manufacturer is looking to enhance efficiency by X percentage points, it's our tech companies which do that. So that is what we all have to communicate as thought leaders sitting here in this room to the Chicago ecosystem to build that partnership. I think that's critical. That's number 2. Number 3 is, of course, one of the things we want to be doing is how do we enhance the presence of our large companies. In Indiana, by the way, we have a great story. Indiana is joint number 1 with Texas in terms of our company presence. And just between 2017 and 21, the number of employees hired locally increased by 43%. I don't think so you will find many other countries with that kind of track record. We would like to make the Chicago region also something like that. So that's another one, how do we enhance? That's number 3. Number 4 is for our SMEs, which I always maintain is the backbone of the economy. What could we look to do? Maybe in partnership with IT Serve Alliance to look at some of your enterprises, the smaller enterprises who are looking to digital transformation. We'd love to kind of work with you and similarly support your bunch of companies in India who are looking to work in India. So that's point number 4. Point number 5 is how do we build alliance? I understand that there is AI by 2030. We met some, government officials today, and they have a particular plan of working on AI 2030 and some of the regulations around that area. I think as India and as NASSCOM, we could work very closely in partnership on that to build an alignment, because that's going to define a lot. We're doing a lot of work on AI and the impact that it has on workforce. I think that's going to define a lot of progress. And we need to ensure that, it's an equitable, inclusive progress. We cannot afford and diverse progress. We cannot afford to lift our foot off the pedal there. I think, this is very, very critical to be able to do that. And last, but most importantly, on talent. On the G20 economy group, I think at a bilat level, we could look to work together on enhancing the talent quotient, share best practices and work on specific areas. Because unless we don't have the talent, all this story of AI and others, GDP doubling, tripling, will only be academic in nature. So on that note, a huge thanks, Consul General. I hope I covered most of the points that you'd asked me to do. And thank you so much for patiently listening to me and not booing me. Thank you so much.